Tonight on The Roast, Julia Gillard talks at the Opera House and the US government may have to shut down and reboot. But first, Mark Humphries.
It was a Labor love fest on the ABC last night with a 1.5-hour interview with former Labor leader Julia Gillard and an hour of Q&A with potential Labor leaders Bill Shorten and Anthony Albanese. As for the actual Labor leader Chris Bowen, I can only assume he was watching the ABC. Hello, Christopher! Gillard was very popular with the crowd, getting a standing ovation at the Sydney Opera House like she's Andre Rieu. And although she was quizzed for an hour by journalist Ann Summers, the toughest question of the night came from Ann Infant.
How come you didn't let gay people get married?
Sorry, why are we laughing? Oh, that's right, because it's the only way our Prime Ministers know how to answer questions about gay marriage.
Let's talk about gay marriage.
And over on Q&A, Bill Shorten and Anthony Albanese faced off in another debate, finding that they had no choice but to agree to disagree. Over who agreed more with each other.
I agree with what Anthony said there. I certainly would, as well as Bill, agree with keeping the tax.
But underneath all the love, Shorten's clearly got violence on the noodle.
Slings and arrows, circular firing squad. Red meat and blood on the floor.
Yowzers! And this comes off the back of what he said on Sunday.
We haven't descended into an orgy of bloodletting.
Buffalo Bill Shorten there, quashing any orgy rumours. He's lost my vote. Scrutineers are busy in the seat of Fairfax, where a recount is on, to double-check whether Australia actually did elect a cartoon billionaire. According to the ABC, there are some big differences between the scrutineers.
Palmer's scrutineers are being delivered gourmet lunches from the billionaire's luxury Coolum resort, while Mr O'Brien's team gets the rare sandwich or roll.
You with Palmer? Palmer? Tell O'Brien, scry him! Popes John Paul II and John the 23rd will be canonised together in an unprecedented joint ceremony. Undoubtedly the greatest crossover since that episode of Magnum P.I. meets Murder, She Wrote. John the 23rd will be canonised despite having only one miracle to his name. So if you only need one miracle, it's good news for future Saint Ada Nicodemu. While we're at it, let's hear it for Saint Grant Denyer. And the final episode of US drama Breaking Bad has aired, and Australia had the highest rate of illegal downloads. Well done, Australia, you're a regular Christopher Skase. Breaking Bad, of course, is about a father driven to illegal activity due to inadequate access to America's health system. Coincidentally, I'm pitching a show about a father driven to illegal activity due to inadequate access to critically acclaimed American dramas. It's called Downloading Dad. But please don't download it, I need the money. And with Breaking Bad now over, I have nothing left to live for. So goodbye, cruel world. Now I'll see you tomorrow on Downloading Dad. For The Roast, I'm Mark Humphries.
Thank you, Mark. I'll catch it on free-to-air in 6 years. And continuing with Julia Gillard's interview with Ann Summers, last night the former Prime Minister explained how constant sexist attacks filled her with a murderous rage. So Ms Gillard, if a dead, bloated sexist washes ashore in the coming months, you'd better have an alibi. And while she was no Blue Man Group, Ms Gillard was met with rapturous applause, a welcome change from her time in power when she was often met with sandwiches. And really, it's surprising how warmly she was received, considering that if Gillard was still Prime Minister, the public's reaction would have been vastly different.
It'll be really interesting to hear what she has to say.
Interesting choice of jacket.
When I first became Prime Minister, I thought to myself then, I don't need to put in the foreground being a woman.
She was a pioneer. Why would you? Can we have one day when she doesn't play the gender card?
I certainly did say to myself that I wouldn't give those people the satisfaction of seeing me shed a tear. I wouldn't do that.
She stood firm to the very end, you bastards. What an emotionless robot. We love you, Julia. Doesn't she have a job to do? Who the hell's paying for all this? Why didn't they interview her like this when she was Prime Minister?
So with Julia Gillard fast becoming Australia's political sweetheart, Kevin Rudd must be asking, when's it his turn to talk to renowned feminist author Ann Summers?
Not for at least 3 more months, Tom. That's the amount of time it takes for a disliked former Prime Minister to become beloved on television. What our politicians need to understand is we are a fickle people, and I make no apologies for it. We've had 3 Prime Ministers in the last 6 months, and I can't remember who won The Voice Season 2. Was it Seal? See, the thing is, Ms Gillard, one day we might like your jacket, but the next day we'll be writing articles about how much we hate your jacket. It really just depends on what we think of your jacket, and whether or not you're Prime Minister at the time. Tom, I'd like to make a televisual analogy, if I may.
I'll allow it.
Julia Gillard is like Joey Tribbiani from the acclaimed situation comedy Friends. Now, we all loved Joey in Friends with his "how you doing?" and smooth Italian skin. But in his Joey spin-off series Joey, too much Joey. How am I doing? I'm sick of it. So to bring it back to politics, do I want former Prime Ministers running the country? No, thank you. But do I want former Prime Ministers appearing on television in small doses? Yes, I do.
Because they don't wear out their welcome.
Yes, unlike Joey. Joey wore out his welcome.
You sure did. Thanks, Nick. Finally tonight, the United States government found itself on the precipice of a government shutdown today, which occurs when Congress fails to pass the national budget by a midnight deadline. Way to be dramatic, America. As President Barack Drama Queen explained this morning,
of all the responsibilities the Constitution endows to Congress, two should be fairly simple. Pass a budget and pay America's bills.
but sadly America was struggling to pass that budget like it was some sort of $17 trillion kidney stone. Now the sticking point is Obama's healthcare plan, which the Republican Congress wants to repeal, claiming it will cost American jobs. And so to make sure that doesn't happen, they are prepared to cost American jobs and immediately send 700,000 government employees home without pay. So what happens in a shutdown? Well, nearly 1 million federal employees have to stop work immediately, meaning no more parking tickets, which is good, but no more garbage collection, which is bad, especially given how many unpaid parking tickets people will just throw into the streets. But it also extends beyond what we normally think of as government into things we normally think of as animal prisons, because the National Zoo will also close, meaning America is facing an unemployed animal crisis. Thankfully, though, the animals are still fed during a shutdown, but instead of food, which costs money, they'd just be fed all the paintings of plants from the museums that also will be closed. How did it get so bad for America? Where did that $17 trillion go? With that kind of debt, the only way they'd ever pay it back is if an older relative dies and leaves them a ton of cash in their will.
So sadly, your Great Britain passed away. But thankfully, you've been bequeathed $15 trillion. Right up top. I'm sorry for your loss.
But of course, this isn't the first time the debt ceiling has been raised, or the second, or the 10th. In fact, since 1960, the debt ceiling has been raised 78 times. 78 times they've had to say, look, I know we said this is our limit, but we need to borrow some more. One thing's for certain, it makes the job of the country's bank manager an incredibly stressful one.
Good morning, President Johnson. Yes, me again. Yes, just to say your debt is now at, let's check here, $311 billion. So if you could perhaps think about starting to make some was that as soon as Vietnam's over? Brilliant. Then after that, let's think about making a healthier bank balance. Yes? Okay, lovely.
Hi, Mr. Reagan. Yes, you have hit $1 trillion worth of debt. Yeah, I know, right? But if you could start repaying that now, then we can... Yep, I know, high inflation and a recession, yes, but $1 trillion, that is so much money, especially in the 80s. Okay, after the recession? Great. All right, thank you, Mr. President. Bye.
Hi, Obama. Yeah, I'm just calling about the $17 trillion you owe. Yes, I know a lot of it is Bush's. It's just you're still running the country as if everything's okay, which it isn't. So how are you going to fix the... Raise the debt ceiling. Yeah, no, you can totally do that. That's great. Well, maybe next week then. Okay, bye.
Stressful. Though of course we now know the US government has shut down. So Jazz Twemlow, what does this mean?